What's going on, guys? Guns blazing back at it again. Recently I did update my auto duel decks because new standard duelist decks came out with the release of 5Ds, so my old auto duel decks weren't that useful anymore and they had a lower win rate. So yeah, it was time to make some new auto duel decks. Now the old decks might be useful for the ones below max level SDs, but I'll be showing two auto duel decks that I'm using right now. One of them is very free to play friendly for the most part. There are no super rares or ultra rares coming from any boxes or structure decks. The other one is not so free to play friendly. So obviously what you're seeing right now is the free to play one. I'm using this for whatever I see on the board, standard duelists. One second though. Before I go on, you should probably triple your rewards if you want to save some time auto-dueling. It is going to give you triple everything, so triple XP, triple drops, and I'm not sure if it gives triple for duel quests as well. I think it does. But yeah, this can be used for standard duelists, legendary duelists, vagrants, vagabonds, whatever you see on the board. Amazonas, even after the nerfs, is still a very decent deck for auto-dueling. What makes a good auto-duel deck in the first place? Well, some board control is always nice, especially on the monster end. You don't really care too much about the back row. There's very few standard duelist decks that give you a lot of trouble when it comes to back row. But yeah, Amazonas is just extremely good at taking care of whatever's on the front lines, you know? Amazonas Onslaught will pretty much deal with anything, get it banished. And of course, you load up the other back row slots with whatever cheesy back row you can find to protect your monsters. The other thing a good auto-duel deck needs is the ability to deal with decks with different win conditions. Because standard duelists, especially with the addition of the newer ones, they're going to have decks that win by getting huge monsters on the board to overwhelm you. They're going to have decks that negate everything. They're going to have decks that burn you down and stall you out until they're able to do so with defensive cards. And in my opinion, Amazonas pretty much has a way to deal with almost any deck, any kind of win condition. It just naturally has the ability to do so. And the last thing that makes a good auto-duel deck is, of course, no skill is required. Now, I'm not talking about player skill, even though Amazonas does require no player skill. I'm talking about the special character skills. Now, as you can see, I don't have any skill set. I would if I had a useful one for Luna, but I currently don't. The only skill that I have right now is Mark of the Dragon, and that actually makes it worse by adding crappy cards to my deck that I don't need. But yeah, the point is that since I don't rely on a skill, I can pretty much use this deck for any characters that I want. Simply copy and paste and don't worry about if they have the skill that's needed for the deck. Of course, if you're leveling up a character that does have a helpful skill available, feel free to use it. For example, Life Point Boost A is a nice auto-duel friendly skill. And a field spell skill wouldn't hurt for this deck since Princess can use it for her cost. Anyways, I'm just going to show you one last auto duel with this deck just so you know that it's consistent. These are all back-to-back duels. Just so you can have some proof that it does actually win most of its games and a little behind why it does, right? Coming up, we're going to be talking about replacements, how to get these cards if you don't have them already, that kind of thing. And also, after that, I'm going to be showing one more auto duel deck that's not free to play, but I find it also very useful for auto duel. So don't be intimidated by all the ultra rare, super rare you see here. Most of these cards can be obtained through either PvP tickets. Amazonas Princess is from PvP tickets. And a lot of them are also from farming My Valentine and leveling up My Valentine. Now this almost goes without saying, but if you have better cards than the one I showed in this free-to-play version, feel free to use them. Toss in those Walladees, toss in that Mom CC, that money wall. I know you gotta have access to some kind of super rares or ultra rares that are good back row for this deck. I was using Amazonas Archers since it does fit the archetype and it's available through PvP tickets. The Gravity Lash is a rare from a certain pack, I forgot which one. So even though it's not a super rare or an ultra rare, you might not have had access to that. But again, if you don't have the back row needed, you can just always replace it with something else, you know. But yeah, that's it for this deck. Nothing is set in stone. Feel free to optimize it, change it up according to your needs, according to what's available to you. And let's move on to the second auto duel deck that I use. So the second deck I'm going to be showing is Blue Eyes. I kind of prefer this one over Amazonas because it does close out duels faster, which matters when, you know, you're auto dueling 100, 200 times. You're going to shave off a few seconds off of each one. Now obviously, you gotta invest in this box right here. The White Dragon of Legend, which is gonna get you the core for this deck, which is Cosmo Brain, Bingo, and your White Dragon Spirit. Now 3 of the White Dragon structure deck will also give you 3 copies of Birthright, so if you don't have Silver's Cry, which is an ultra rare from the main box, then feel free to sub in Birthright, you're gonna get it with the box as well. Now I also like running Sangan in this deck, but I know not everyone will have access to it. It pulls out your Cosmo Brain, gives the deck a little more consistency, but as you can see, you can replace it with Crystal Seer, I don't know, any draw options like Dekoichi, or even if you want, you could run triple Wall of Disruption or whatever defensive back row you can find. So I'm just saying, like, if you replace the 3 Silver's Cry with Birthright, the 3 Sangans with something else, you actually get a deck that doesn't cost you that much money. It'll cost you 20 bucks, and it's guaranteed to pull all the Cosmo Brains you need, all the Dragon Spirits you need, because it's a structured deck. It's not a main box where RNG is involved to build the deck. Now, while this can deal with most of the standard duelist decks, there are some situations where it's going to be overpowered by, let's say, Gem Knights, since they can end up with higher attack than your Blue Eyes, and your win condition is basically getting your Blue Eyes out. But again, that's just one deck out of many. If anything, a really smart thing to do while you're auto-dueling is to have 2 or more auto-duel decks available. So, even if you have both of these auto-duel decks that I showed in this video, just slap them both onto the same character that you're auto-dueling with, and then, you know how it gives you the name of whatever deck that you're gonna... whatever deck that the standard duelist is gonna use against you? And you can use that information to your advantage. So you could be like, oh, Blue Eyes is sucky against Gem Knights. I'm just gonna quickly switch over to the other auto-duel deck that I have, which is Amazonas, which might have a better shot of beating that, you know? But yeah, anyways, as you can see there, this is why this deck is pretty successful. You just get a Blue Eyes out on the board, and usually you can get multiple Blue Eyes out on the board. I've had turn 2s, turn 3s where the AI somehow manages to get all slots full with 3,000 plus attack monsters. That's the kind of explosive potential that this deck has. And here's a perfect example of why Sangan is useful in this deck. Pull in that Cosmo Brain, the last piece we need to secure this win. Duels go by a lot faster with this deck. I'm actually not sure which one has a higher win rate, whether it's Amazonas or this one right here, but I'm willing to bet that with the speed that this deck has, it's gonna be a lot better for you in the long run to use it over Amazonas if you do have access to it. Those Who Charge is a pretty easy deck. I think that's the vanilla deck. It shouldn't cause you any problems, so that's what I was talking about earlier. Like, you can check the name of the deck that they're gonna use. Now, let's say that you're completely free to play and you're wondering if it's worth it to blow 20 bucks on the structured deck. To me, I'd say it's pretty worth it because not only do you get a really great auto-dueling deck, but it's a pretty decent deck right now in terms of, you know, PvP. Definitely one of the stronger decks out there. I'm not quite sure if it's top tier, but it can definitely get you to Legend, King of Games, that kind of thing. As long as you don't run into any Buster Blade or Bajos out there. Which actually isn't that common right now, so I don't think you should really worry about that. But yeah, guys, that's gonna be it for this video. I hope it helps you out in Duel Quest, and you know, there's that 1.5 times XP that's going on. You should probably take advantage of that. I'm sure there's other auto-duel decks out there. If you have your own auto-duel deck that you use that you think is gonna help out other people, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'm curious to see what you guys came up with as well. If you found this video helpful, feel free to subscribe for some more helpful Duel Links content. We also do deck showcases and highlights from both fun decks and competitive decks. We got those spicy decks and those decks that help you climb. On this channel, Guns Blazing. I see you guys looting Chloe, but I have to remind you that it's still No Nut November, so please exercise some self-discretion. Have yourself a good day. And this is Guns Blazing, signing out.
Downtown we let it go. Sunset break the scene. One step deep as you fall to me. High clap, we skip a beat. Count 1, 2, 3. And don't you stop the music, get into it. Won't you dance with me? Find a place and lose it. You can do it. Won't you dance with me? Move your feet.